This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about Tango Gameworks being taken over and revived, Red Dead Redemption PC getting a leak on PlayStation, the Switch 2 may be coming later than we thought, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 45. I'm your host, the man who has been stabbed by spears and crushed by hammers more times than he can count, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man whose sheer power caused Ornstein and Smough to cower and beg for their lives before him, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It has been a interesting week. In fact, so interesting that I actually had to make some notes just to make sure that I got everything right. So, for my job, one of our executives resigned over this weekend, which was kind of sudden, but there was some confusion around the office as far as what's going on, who is getting replaced and whatnot. So that stuff's going down, but things seem to be so far running as usual. One thing that is different for me, though, is the fact that Monday I was asked by one of my managers to help step up for one of our other members who was transitioning to a new department, and so I was asked to fill in for her. So I began training yesterday, and I still don't completely know everything. I'm still trying to get a grasp on everything there, but it seems that as a whole it's not too bad, the stuff I'll be doing. Just stuff I have to learn, also figuring out who to contact for certain stuff here and there, so that definitely has been interesting. But on a more fun note, I received an email before about a Kickstarter project that I don't even remember when I did this, but I just put it as a notify me when it opens. And so it's for this card game that's called Paragon, and it's sort of like Magic the Gathering, which was interesting to me. And it very is similar, so because you have the different types of mana that correspond to the type of creatures you can summon and stuff like that, and you have what are called Paragons, which seem to be pretty much planeswalkers, more or less. So I already backed it. In fact, I probably backed it to a level higher than I probably should realistically be spending, but not a crazy amount. But it definitely seemed interesting enough where I was like, I'm interested in seeing how this goes, because of a lot of stuff that Wizards of the Coast had been doing in more recent years. I was like, I really don't feel like I really don't want to touch Magic anymore.
Right.
So this seems like something that I could probably use to replace it, but at the same time, I might not necessarily, know too many people who are doing it, but considering the fact that the tier that I supported, I have several different decks and plus also a bunch of booster packs, so I could just make a bunch of decks so I could play with someone who would be around. So that's something I could do there. But that was interesting enough as it is there. But that pretty much sums up my past week.
Nice. Yeah, I used to play Magic a bunch back in, 20 plus years ago, which, it's crazy to me to think that it's been that long. But basically, because when I guess it would have been early 2000s, when my cousin had lived with us, he gave me all the Magic cards he had. And so I had a bunch of them that were mostly from the 90s, some from the early 2000s. And I ended up buying some on my own as well before I moved to Alaska. And so I still have I want to say 5 or 6 decks that I just haven't played in forever. But I always enjoyed that game, and this one sounds interesting. So is this a physical card game, or is this like a digital?
It is physical.
Okay.
I know that they have sort of like I think they also have a digital one they're also doing partially right now so people can understand how the game works. Because they did put out like a link to that for people to try it out.
Yeah.
But the main thing is the physical version as well, so people can go through there and stuff and actually play the cards in person.
That's cool. Yeah, it's one of those things that I would love to play. Things like that again. I'm hoping that when my boys get older, we can play some of those games. Because, I mean, I have enough decks between Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! That we could very easily, play both of those. Granted, most of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards are, once again, 20 years old. So it's just like, but before the rules got overly complicated. And, yeah, before they had, like, the teeniest, tiniest font for a huge mountain of text that they started doing. Yeah. So, anyway.
You just need like the perfect lighting, and you need a magnifying glass just to read those cards.
Though I think, what was it? It had to have been maybe a few years ago. I think it was before we left Alaska. I did buy some more Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I bought a set that included Exodia and I mean, obviously they were reprints, as well as the 3 Egyptian god cards, although they didn't have like all the text of how they work, so I basically just like attached sticky notes to them so that I would know, because it's like you technically can use them, it's just that the ones that they include don't have the text of how they work on them. So but anyway, yeah, that's good stuff. In terms of my week, it's been reasonably uneventful for the most part. There was a bunch of editing I had to do over the past like several days. Really, today was the first day that I didn't really have anything that I had to work on. I mean, I took Sunday off, but spent most of my day Saturday editing videos, and then a bunch of time on Monday and a bunch of time on Tuesday. And so there was all that, and I'm taking today, tomorrow, and Friday off from work so that I can get basically the house cleaned, do spray for killing off fleas and preventing them from laying and stuff, because well, for one, we've had the problem for a little bit, but also because of the fact that my sister's coming out to visit, and she's going to be staying with us starting Sunday all through next week. So I just spent like most of the day today cleaning, and not much else. I mean, I got a little bit of game time in today, and lots of game time in before that, just during breaks and such, but yeah, that's pretty much it from that standpoint. Let me think here. Oh, something I did want to tell you that's sort of unrelated, but it is gaming related at the same time. So, on the game Outer Wilds, of course, once you get the game like really going, it has a 22-minute cycle for each day before the sun explodes. I mean, that's like one of the central mechanics of the game. It's a time loop thing. They reveal that in the initial trailer, so it's not spoiling anything. There's a song that plays during the last 2 minutes before the sun explodes. And it's like just a really cool sounding song. It's something that like every time I would hear it, I mean, before I connected it with the fact that it was specifically basically telling me the sun's about to explode when it started playing. Like, I used to think, oh, this is because I found something significant, and that's why the song is playing. And it, then I realized, oh no, it's because the sun's about to explode. So I thought about it, and it's like, okay, with my kids, every night, trying to get them to get in the mindset that it's about time to go to bed. So we have an alarm set for when they have 15 minutes until bedtime. And then we've lately been letting them stay up until 8:15, which is the staying up late for them. And so what I decided to do is I set an alarm on my phone for 8:13, so that it goes off with that song playing. And then my kids know the song, like, because they watched me play Outer Wilds enough, they recognize the song immediately, and so they get excited when it goes off, and they'll come in and stand by my phone listening to the song until it goes off, and then they're like, okay, it's bedtime. Actually, I did that before last week. I just forgot to mention it, but yeah, I think that's everything. I mean, there's lots of stuff related to. I did get a couple more recipes recorded over the weekend. I got a recipe for both some homemade queso, salsa con queso, as well as guacamole. So those are a couple more that will go up in the future. Not this next week because I'm going to be taking that week off, but I have like this week, counting the podcast, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos altogether going up this week. And then I'm taking a couple weeks off. So, and that's between a couple channels, or between 3 channels. So anyway, that being said, what have you been playing this week?
All right, so I didn't send any footage because it was just more or less the same thing, but I played some more Halls of Torment, primarily just initially just to something that is a relaxing game, something that's not really too mind intensive, although I did manage to get a fairly decent number of achievements while I was playing.
Nice.
And there was one thing though, that an item that I had unlocked, but the thing with this item is whenever you get an item, you have to send it up, otherwise it doesn't count as you claiming it.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was I had finally found this item, but I died before I could send it up.
No.
And it frustrated me too, because I just went through so much just to get that item, only to lose it. So I'll have to give that one another run. But I have been playing, well, I don't know what order to describe this in. So I'll just go ahead and start, and I'll say Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. And the reason I play this is because, and this will be what I describe next, is Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories. But I played Rechain and I didn't like it. I mean, I knew what it was and I played it, but I said, I'm not feeling this game at all. Like, it doesn't feel good. So I went back and played Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, and just so I could really like understand everything, because that was what I played originally.
Right.
I never played Rechain of Memories, but Chain of Memories was what I knew. That was what I had played. That was the first Kingdom Hearts game I actually played before. And I remember this like, yes, this feels good. This is so familiar. I remember being able to play through the game, being able to switch through my cards, because for some reason it felt more difficult on the remake version.
Right.
But this one just felt so much smoother to me, and it felt easier to actually hit enemies to initiate battles rather than miss and then them walking into me and I don't get to stun them. But it felt so much better in Chain of Memories, and I enjoyed that. That being said, I went back later on and played Rechain of Memories, and it felt a whole lot better.
Good.
Granted, the footage you're seeing is when I was first playing Rechain, so
Okay, gotcha.
It's not going to be as good. The gameplay's not going to be as good. But it did feel a lot better after I played Chain, because I could understand it more, just certain mechanics.
Right.
But because, for one thing, jumping into Rechain after playing Kingdom Hearts 1, certain controls just feel so weird, because you expect them to do something else. Like, for example, R1 and L1, though you use those to cycle through your decks, whereas at least in Kingdom Hearts 1, R1 was what you used to target enemies. But in Rechain, it's R2 to target enemies. So that really throws me off quite a bit there. And then also trying to have to move the camera while also swiping through your deck to find a card, because you do also need to make sure at the same time you block your enemy's attacks by using a higher card, or just using 0 to completely cancel out their attacks, which when you start out the game, it's very confusing and a bit frustrating to me. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't care for it.
Mm-hmm.
But after playing through the Game Boy Advance version of Chain, then I started to appreciate it more.
Gotcha.
One thing that I noted that definitely seemed, well, a couple things I noted which were very interesting to me was the fact that Rechain of Memories came out after Kingdom Hearts 2.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I think it was 2007 in Japan and maybe 2009 in the US.
Yeah.
So hearing an older Haley Joel Osment voicing Sora when canonically it's like right after Kingdom Hearts 1. So you're hearing Kingdom Hearts 2 Sora out of Kingdom Hearts 1 Sora.
Mm-hmm.
That just seemed, it was just something that was like funny to me hearing. But the one thing that also is a bit of a plot hole that I noticed, I mean, not really a plot hole, but just something because certain things were retconned and whatnot, and certain stuff was added, was the fact that at the beginning of the game, when Donald sees Marluxia, he calls him a Heartless because he doesn't know who he is or what he is. But the funny thing is that in the previous game, when you face the unknown enemy, he looks the same thing. He's the same. He's like dressed the same way, black robe character, and you're like, you didn't think he was a Heartless there. So I just thought that was funny itself. But one quick thing though I want to mention is something that I kept forgetting to bring up every time I talk about Kingdom Hearts is it seems like the collection is split up between multiple exe files. Each game has its own exe. Like Kingdom Hearts 1, even though it launches from Kingdom Hearts collection, when you ever select the game, it seems to go into actually a different exe and boots that up, which is weird. And I didn't even notice that until I actually played it on my Linux computer, because it always seems like it closes it down but then opens it up again. And I didn't even realize that at the time. So that's interesting, because I looked also into the folder files and saw there were multiple games there, so that was interesting in that aspect. But yeah, other than that, not really too much that I've been doing gaming wise.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Chain of Memories definitely has a special place in my heart, because I remember that I specifically bought a Game Boy Advance SP from a friend. She sold it to me for cheap. Like, literally, I think it was either $10 or $20 that she sold it to me for, and this was in 2005, when the SP was still new. And when I got that, of course, I wanted to play Chain of Memories, so I bought it immediately, and I still have my copy of the game. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the box, but you know, those Game Boy boxes were so cheap and terrible. So, but I do have the game cartridge and the manual still. But yeah, I never played Rechain, and I will say though, to be fair, as far as the continuity aspect of it all, obviously the unknown enemy or whatever he's called in Final Mix was not originally in Kingdom Hearts, so got to be fair to him in that. But
yeah, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt as the fact that they were in Castle Oblivion, so as soon as they entered, they're gonna already start forgetting stuff from before. Yeah. Like Donald forgot his magic, so I will say that.
Okay. There we go.
But one thing though, I'm not looking forward to with the remake is, or at least getting through it, is the Riku side, because his decks were awful a good deal of the time, just because they were always pre-made. I don't know if they changed that in the remake. I don't know if they changed that or not, but in the Game Boy Advance version, I know that not being able to switch out the cards for Riku was bothersome, because you always got a bunch of ones.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I remember how much I liked being able to play as Riku, so maybe I just blocked that part out. I just remember how cool I thought it was. I get to play as Riku, and then of course, you know, you fight Ansem and everything, or is it Ansem you fight? I don't even remember. It's been so long.
You did fight him.
Okay. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, I really want to go back to those games. I'm still slowly working through the the Union Cross or whatever it's called, the cutscenes for those. I mean, just like that's something that typically when I'm doing my workouts that allow me that aren't me laying on my back to where I can actually stand up and watch something at the same time, I'll have those playing, and I'm just slowly going through them because it's hard for me to sit down and watch those because I need to pay attention. And if I'm doing something else at the same time, it's a lot easier to pay attention. But if I'm like working or something, I mean, I can't because I have to be able to read what they're saying. And anyway, so. But I'm hoping that what I'm thinking potentially, I don't know if it'll be immediately, but when I finish getting through all those cutscenes, I'm finally going to jump into Kingdom Hearts 3. Or maybe watch the cutscenes from the Birth by Sleep fragmentary passage again, because I guess that's supposed to basically take place like right after the end of the Union Cross cutscenes. So, but anyway, and obviously, you know, since I already beat it, I can just go back and review those cutscenes. As far as what I've been playing, so first I'll just mention, because even though I played very little of it, I did play some more Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I'm not sure if I just accidentally killed him too fast, because I noticed when I was doing it, this is fighting Gebel or Gebel or whatever his name is. So I was fighting him because from our discussion, I thought, okay, I'm supposed to. He summons something like right near the end, and I like land the killing blow on him right after he summons it, and I get another bad ending. So clearly I'm not supposed to be there yet, unless I missed something. But I went in there. I never had anything that like clearly indicated it when I was supposed to pull out the sword, and I just had it equipped the whole time. I fought him, didn't have any difficulties with it, took him down pretty quickly, and then I got an achievement for getting a bad ending. I think it was a different bad ending, but it was still a bad ending. So,
right. I will say this though: you don't finish the fight by actually beating him.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that. I won't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you.
Yeah. I know from what you were saying before, that's what I thought, but you know, there wasn't like any way that I could not beat him unless it was that I was supposed to do whatever creature he summoned. But the problem, of course, was that I was already in the middle of swinging my sword when he summoned the creature and I killed him. So if I was supposed to kill that creature, then I'll just have to go back in and be more careful in not killing him too fast, because obviously I just killed him too fast. So, but anyway, the other thing though is that like I only have like 80% of the map completed, and I know of course that there's the Master Carpenter, which I tried again and still just couldn't beat. Of course, I got rid of some of my crystals, and there's like a fairly easy cheese strat that I found, but unfortunately it has a use of a crystal that I don't have. One of the abilities for like a chainsaw sword thing that you basically just spam the whole fight, and I don't have that anymore. So I have to either go back and try to find it or figure out some other way to beat it. And then I know there's at least one door that I need a special key for. I think it's like the Millionaire's Key is, I believe, what I need. I just haven't looked up how to get it. So there's that. And then, of course, obviously, I'm still missing 20% of the map, and I don't know if some of the map opens up further after finishing this fight the right way. Or, I mean, is that how it is, or is there just stuff I'm missing?
Yeah, there's going to be more of the map that opens up after the fight.
Good.
And in fact, I'm trying to remember, because even though, well, remember how in Aria of Sorrow there was another area?
Right.
It wasn't like inverted castle, but there was like
right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
There is something like that in this game. As well.
Okay.
But there is still, in addition to that, there is still also that extra 20% of this map as well. So I think either you go to that area first before going to the 20%, or you go to part of the 20% before going to that area and coming back.
All right. Well, I'll probably give it another try then and see where I get with it. Because like I would like to see the game through to the end, and of course I'd love to get 100% completion on the map. I just wasn't seeing where else to go, because it's like I find 2 places that I haven't been to yet for sure, and both of them are behind locked doors. One of which is the master carpenter, which I just haven't been able to kill, and the other one I don't have the key for. So, but yeah. Anyway, and then most obviously I played a whole bunch of Dark Souls Remastered. So, let's see here. I'm trying to think of where I was last week. The last thing I did, I think, was beating Smough. And I can't remember if I did Smough before or after Blighttown. Probably was after. But I did that. Gosh, I can't remember the order of things I did, but I did that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, after that I went Sense Fortress, which I think I died to boulders more than anything else in Sense Fortress. I mean, I definitely, like, occasionally would get killed by enemies. Definitely, especially when I when I got ganged up on by some of the lizard mage guys, when falling down to a lower area, or on occasion when I was dealing with the titanium or the Titanite demons, whatever they're called.
Oh yeah.
Though I ended up taking out basically all of them with arrows, because there was a way to do that, and so I took advantage of it, and I made sure. I don't think I killed a single. Well, no, I did kill the one in the Undead Chapel regularly, and then the rest of them I took out with arrows. And usually it was just finding the right angle. Sometimes it was like, okay, shoot, move out of the way so they don't get hit by the lightning. Shoot, move out of the way so they don't get hit by lightning. But I got through Sense Fortress. I ended up having to use summons for fighting the Iron Golem. And it was mostly just more an issue of I just wasn't patient enough to keep trying, because I was struggling a bit with it. But I did that, and of course went to Honor Londo, which apparently I guess if you skip the cutscene for when it transports you and drops you off, it doesn't give you the achievement. So I mean, I was able to get it later on by flying back first to Sense Fortress and then flying to Honor Londo. But I went through Honor Londo, fought Ornstein and Smough, and I can't tell you how many times I fought them. It was a lot. And so like I was trying trying various strategies. Initially I was just like dying super fast. There'd be times I would get into the room and I would literally die immediately. Like I would get hit immediately. Then there was other times where I would actually get all the way through the Ornstein, kill Ornstein. Smough would come out and would take me down. I mean, like, I think I only died to his electric butt slam one time, but I did die to various other attacks from him, and like I can't tell you how many times I did not make it to them. I would say it was definitely more often than not I would die during the first portion of the fight. It felt basically endless. And then there was like one time where I was like on fire from the get-go. Like I got through Ornstein. I basically barely got hit. I did get hit because out of the 10 Estus flasks I started with, I still had 6 left by the time I finished off Ornstein. So I was doing really well. Or, let's see here. No, I'm probably mixing up runs. So anyway, but there was one time where like, okay, I was really on fire. I got right near the end of killing Ornstein and then I died. And then there was another time where I went in and I fought both of them, and I got Ornstein down. I got Smough down almost completely. I like part of the time I used. I think initially, because of previous experiences I had had with him, I decided, okay, I'm just going to slowly pluck away at him. I'll do fire, I'll do arrows, and then I ran out of arrows. Forgot that I had some other arrows in my inventory that just weren't equipped. And so then I just, okay, I'm going to slowly attack him with Zweihander, which is, the main weapon I've been using for the majority of the game. And I got him down to a point where one more hit would have definitely killed him, without question. But my timing was off, and as I was in the air doing my jump strike, he killed me. And then after that, I had multiple more attempts, never quite doing it for quite a while there. And just like I'd have several more, or like 2 or 3 more times where I got Ornstein down, I was fighting Smough, and like I'd be doing well for a while, and then I'd just get caught on a piece of the environment, or I just rolled just the wrong way and then got taken out. And I mean, like, I tried various strategies. I wanted to try doing dung pie strategy, but I didn't have enough dung pies. I didn't want to trek all the way back to any place. Plus, I wasn't sure initially whether or not I could actually get back to Sen's Fortress until I finished up the area that I was in. And it was kind of just a situation where, like, I knew that there was going to be a point when I would... it's like, yes, I could go back, I could farm humanity, because I guess I should also mention the bonfire that was closest to them. In fact, both of the 2 bonfires that were closest to them, I didn't actually have enough, I didn't have humanity, so I couldn't ignite them, which meant that the max I could get was 5 Estus flasks, which just was not going to cut it. So I had to keep trekking back and forth from the one at the very first bonfire in Orlando. And it wasn't terrible. I mean, there's a handful of those like big Iron Knight guys, and usually I could roll past them. Occasionally I would not roll quite right and they would hit me. I mean, they typically didn't kill me. Usually they would just knock off a chunk of my health, which meant, of course, I was wasting an Estus flask in order to go into the fight. But it was just like a bunch of attempts. I tried using the toxic, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's like a poison breath spell that you use. It's one of the only things that you can use as a pyromancer other than fire, is you can use poison. I thought, okay, well, maybe if I can poison Smough, he'll get poisoned. That'll, lower his health enough to, that can slowly whittle down his health. I just avoid him until he dies. That didn't work. I don't know if it might work if I did it more than once, but there was no indication that I could actually get it working. So I didn't even bother that after the one time I tried it. And it was just something where it was like, okay, I'm trying this. I'm not getting anywhere. I keep having the same issue. I'd even slept on it and come back to it and thinking, okay. In fact, that time that I was like really on fire was after I slept on it and then came back to it the next day. That first time, I was like really on fire initially, and then I just died and then failed a bunch of times after that. But all that being said, eventually I did finally beat them. What I ended up having to do in order to do it, I didn't use any cheese methods. Like, there's a method you can use that actually makes it so that both of them are completely like frozen, like they don't move at all. And so you basically can kill the first guy for free, and then the second guy will, you actually have to fight him normally. But I didn't use that method because I was like, yes, I could use this and it would definitely make it possible. It would make it way easier, but I wouldn't get the satisfaction of actually beating them. And for the most part, when it came to Ornstein, like I knew his attacks well enough to where I could dodge a lot of them, but I still would get hit, every once in a while. Sometimes it would be, because I just happened to not quite roll far enough to avoid Smough's attack that followed up, or because, he has that one, Ornstein has that one charging spear attack where he can sometimes veer around obstacles and sometimes not. Or like, he would go around the obstacle, he'd get to me, I'd be able to dodge it, but then I try attacking him and my attack would be just slow enough to where he would dodge out of the way before it hit him. And but anyway, so what I ended up doing with Smough was basically, as soon as I got him up, I just decided I'm going to take it as slowly and carefully as possible. I'm not using my sword at all. I just used my bow. I stayed as far back as I could. I'd get off a shot, maybe 2 shots, then dodge out of the way because he'd slam down his hammer, and then I would keep backing up, just slowly plucking away, and eventually he was dead. And thank God, because that was that fight. Like, I've heard about this fight many times before, but that was definitely, without question, the most difficult thing. The only thing that's frustrating to me about the fight or rather, the one thing that's frustrating to me about this whole experience is that sometimes the Steam Deck wasn't working with recording. Like, I would activate the recording and then it wouldn't actually do anything. And I really wanted to be able to get my victory recorded, and the record function was not working when I was doing those fights. And so I did not get the final blows, that final successful fight recorded at all, which is just a bummer. But it's like, whatever. I have the achievement that proves it, the fact that I can warp between bonfires, which is just amazing to finally be able to do.
Yes.
It's like, I didn't know that was going to happen, and my friend told me before I finished it that I would be able to warp to bonfires. It's like, oh, that is huge. That is huge, and it's wonderful, and I'm so glad, because I thought that I was going to have to trek on foot for the entire game. It's like, I had pretty much accepted that was going to be the case until, of course, I found out that wasn't the case, and I was so happy, because it definitely makes a big difference, especially for doing things like farming humanity, for example, which I've done a bit since then, and just proceeding in general. So, after I finally successfully did that, I went and got, I think, the rest of the stuff I needed to do in Honor Londo. I got some humanity, so I was able to ignite some bonfires. I went and went back to the Undead Asylum and cleared out everything there, including the Stray Demon, which the Stray Demon initially I was struggling a lot with, but once I figured out that the best thing to do was to stay close to him most of the time, except like whenever he'd do the firebomb, and then I just needed to make sure I was far enough away to not get hit by it. Then I was able to beat him without too much difficulty. It still probably took me 10 to 15 tries at least, because I don't know how many times I died. There was definitely times where I would fall in and I would die immediately. Like, I would get hit once and I'd be dead. Just get hit right with the end of his axe. And then other times where, there's all sorts of other things. But initially I was really annoyed with the fight, and I was thinking, man, this isn't Ornstein and Smough, but it's still just, am I just going to find some kind of cheese method to beat this guy? And ultimately I didn't. I was able to take him out. And from there I also went back to, went down to the catacombs, which, those freaking wheel skeletons. Those things are the worst. The worst enemy ever. And from what my friend was telling me, it sounds like they're probably the worst enemy in all of Dark Souls. I think maybe a close second might be the area where I am right now, which is in New Londo Ruins. And yeah, those ghosts. Of course, I have the transient curses, so that I can actually damage them, but it's like I'll get through a decent chunk, and then they just all gang up on me, and it doesn't matter. Like I could take if I am able to hit them with the Zweihander, I can take them out in a single hit, no problem. Most of the time, I end up having for this area, just what I've done so far in new Land of Ruins. I have had my Drake sword also equipped so that I have something that's better for short range attacks. Because the Zweihander, it's great for if you have enough room to swing it, but I also find a lot of times, like if you're right up against a wall, sometimes it'll hit the wall, and that makes it more difficult to hit enemies. Plus, it's a lot slower to swing with, and all of that. So it's just like, in general, it's not ideal. So I haven't made much. I haven't even gotten to the bonfire yet in there. I mean, I only tried a handful of times because I was cleaning most of the day, but the little bit of playtime that I did get in, I didn't quite make it. But Pinwheel went down in, I think, 4 hits, something like that. And the only reason why I think the only reason why I took that many hits, I believe, I might have missed one swing. I can't remember. Anyway, it was, obviously it was a piece of cake fight. I mean, I did get hit once or twice because I wasn't guarding or anything, and I was just trying to wail on him and, take him out. But I once I found out that, doing this fight will make it so that you can have 15 and 20 Estus flasks. It's like, that's worth going into and doing, because like I was dreading going back to the catacombs because I did it on the Switch. That was the most recent thing I did when I played on Switch. And the catacombs, I hate that area so much. It wasn't nearly as bad this time, mostly because I had the checklist guide. That checklist guide, though, the way it's formatted, it doesn't have everything in the exact like level order. It just has like, okay, you do this, 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 this. You move on to this area, and the order is all over the place. But when I found out about the being able to do 15 and subsequently 20 Estus flasks, I knew that it was going to be worthwhile to go in there. But the list that I had been following, they had going down to the catacombs like way near the bottom, like going through several areas, including areas in like level 70, before even going down to the catacombs. And it was like, why would you put this way down here when it gives you something so important that would be really useful to have a lot earlier? I mean, it would have been great to have that when dealing with Ornstein and Smough, especially because like the that very last, or that time that I got Smough down to basically just a single hit left and he would have been dead. I ran out of Estus flasks. And that's the only reason why I died. If I still had at least one Estus flask, I would have been able to take him down, because I could have just healed up. It's just my health was too low, so I died instead of him. But anyway, trying to think if there's anything else with that. I did determine that, I mean, like I've seen people previously playing wearing no gear, just doing the you're just wearing the loincloth and you have a weapon and maybe a shield. And I determined that when fighting a difficult boss, that's actually the better way to play, because it's much easier to dodge. Your dodge range is much longer and you roll a lot faster and it uses up less stamina. So I definitely will take advantage of that if I'm facing a difficult boss that I can't beat while wearing armor. But that was what I ended up doing for beating Ornstein and Smough. And I feel like there's something else. No, I think that's pretty much it. Just, finish the catacombs and then started going into the new Land of Ruins. And yeah, that's it.
No other games?
Nope, nothing else.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, no, that's not true. I did play Lego games with my boys. In fact, last week we finished up Lego Pirates with my middle son.
Oh, nice.
So this past weekend we started up Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. So that's not the Skywalker Saga because that one includes 3 games that are not part of Star Wars. But we finished up. I mean, we started the Complete Saga, and my oldest son, we're almost through Harry Potter Year 4. I think we're probably like 2/3 of the way through that year. And I think that he is going to want to go back and do more of the objectives, which definitely proves that he's my son, because it's like, that's the stuff I like to do in general. I haven't bothered with these because it's like, the way I see it is, while I'm more of a completionist and I would like to do those things, I don't want to force them to have to do it because they might not enjoy it so much. And it's like, hey, if you want to go back and redo these levels with additional spells in the case of Harry Potter, so that we can actually get through, I mean, you get all of the different collectibles and achievements, I'm all for it.
Very nice, very nice. Going back, so yeah, Anne Orlando has definitely been considered the gatekeeper level of the entire game. Like, even though some people said that initially, like, the Bell Tower Gargoyles are like your first gatekeeper, because if you can't get past them, you're gonna have a hard time with the rest of the game. But those two are truly the gatekeepers of Dark Souls.
Yeah,
like very much. And like, you describing your experience just reminded me of my experience with those two. Just like restarting the game so many times, and the fact that I think one of the worst parts is the fact that, I mean, you had it worse because you had to start back way further than I did. But just getting through that cathedral, getting past all of the Black Knights just to get to that point, because depending on where you go, you either have...
it's just Silver Knights.
Okay, the Silver Knights, okay.
And they're nowhere near as bad as the Black Knights. Although I do want to just quickly mention, it was so satisfying when I had to deal with Black Knights at the Undead Asylum that they were way easier to kill than they've ever been before. And I felt so happy about that, because it's like, those guys just... I hated them so much. And it's like, every time I would encounter one, I would try to find a way to cheese it. Like, I killed one, the one in, the Undead Chapel. I lured him out to get killed by the dragon. I killed another one, at, Undead Berg by luring him off a cliff. And then I think... same thing with the one that is down in Darkroot Basin. I lured it off a cliff. And then I did have to kill the Hovel, the hammer guy, normally. Although I do need to... I'm just going to say one more thing about... So Hovel, there's this great video. And I can't remember if I shared it with you or not. If I didn't, I will track it down and send it to you. Of this guy who's going up against Hovel. He keeps parrying his attacks, and they keep just like doing a standoff, staring at each other for a while. And he's like just constantly parrying his attacks. And then finally, I can't remember if he just misses the attack or what it is, but of course, then Hovel kills him. It was hilarious, but I need to find... I know I sent it to my other friend who's big on Dark Souls. I'll find that video and I'll send it to you, because it's amazing. But anyway.
Yes. But yeah, I'm definitely glad you got through those guys, because... And then also, as you mentioned, being able to warp between bonfires. Like, I mean, the one thing is you can't warp between every bonfire, but the fact that you can do it through a lot of them is a huge improvement, or having just to walk back and forth.
Right.
That was...
Yeah, I seriously thought it was just going to be the entire game. I'm walking back and forth. There will be some shortcuts here and there. And shortcuts are helpful, but it's still way better not having to deal with that and actually being able to warp around.
Yeah. So that definitely was good. And I could be wrong, because I don't think 2 had any sort of restriction or it had any sort of penalty. It
Hmm.
might have had a penalty. I can't remember because it's been a while since I've touched 2.
I'm pretty
But I
sure,
do know that
from what my friend was saying, all future games let you warp between any of them
right.
from
And
the
you don't
get-go.
need to like get any sort of you don't need any requirements. So I'm glad excuse me. I'm glad that they cut that out in future games because and that made things a whole lot easier because sometimes I just think about like how hard it would have been having to walk back and forth between other bonfires in games like Dark Souls 3. Like I would have had a worse time. In Dark Souls 2, that one would have been way worse.
Yeah, I've heard about some of the locations in that, like especially in the DLC. There's like some snowy location, and it's a crazy distance between bonfires.
But one thing about Dark Souls 1, if you feel inclined to do it, you don't necessarily have to do it. And only I would really recommend doing this if you wanted to go after the boss. There is a painting in one of the buildings in Anne Orlando that goes into a new area. It's completely optional.
Right.
Like, if you want to go through that area to like fight the boss and get the achievement, you can do that. If not, you don't have to. Additionally, there is one other boss in Anne Orlando around one of the area. I can't remember how you get to him, but you have to like move around like one of the areas, and you have to. I think you have to adjust one of those rotating towers that move up and down as you.
Oh yeah, I know what you're. Are you talking about the one by the bonfire? Because
Yes.
there's like a bonfire right in the middle between the first one and the third one, and yeah, because you have the one near the entrance that by default is already up to whatever highest Kindle level you have, that has the person wearing gold. I can't remember their name in there, and that which is the one that I had to go from, and then there's another one that's inside the castle with with Ornstein and Smough, which is the one that typically I think you're more supposed to go from that one to the fight as you lose. But in between there's one that when you lower the elevator down, it's like right near a statue.
Yes. Yeah. There's a secret boss there. Now, one thing is if you beat that boss, all the bonfires in Anne Orlando will not work anymore. Oh, actually, no, wait. No, yeah.
I think it has something to do with your covenant, if I remember right.
No, it's not the covenant. It's the fact. Actually,
I mean, like if you beat him, you're not a certain covenant. I can't remember. I remember hearing about there's something about you shouldn't be facing him until a certain point later in the game. But
actually, because I'm actually wrong. It's not beating him that destroys that removes the bonfires. It's because I can't remember if doing this activates his boss fight or allows you to do it or not. Because no, never mind. I'm actually wrong because it's something else that you do that sets all that off, which might be a bit of a spoiler or not. So I'm not gonna cover that. But anyway, there's a painting in one of the areas you can go to that goes to a different area. You can get that. You can go there if you want to. It's not necessary. There's nothing that I know of or remember. Like there aren't any really items that are really all that great. But if you want to go there, you can do it if you want to. Yeah. And I think actually now we're roughly around the same point because I think I stopped playing around the ruins. But I think so. I think so because I went to one area. I can't remember what it was. It was like this fire area, but I was like, I'm not doing this right now. But I went to the New Londo ruins and I probably made it to the first bonfire, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One thing I will say, the New Londo ruins, even though of course I don't like it because of all the obnoxious scythe wielding ghosts. I do find it intriguing just thinking about, okay, what happened here? Because, I mean, based on tropes and everything from stories that I've read, seen, etc., you'd assume that at some point, okay, you had Honor Londo, and then you had people who left Honor Londo, they set up this new Londo, and then something happened to cause it to go underwater and kill everybody, and presumably all the ghosts are the ghosts of people who died in New Londo, and of course it's just completely basically destroyed. I know I read something about that you're supposed to be able to drain it at some point. I'm not sure, or unless I did something previously that already drained it, and this is the drained state, but I'm guessing that's not the case. And I don't know when that's supposed to happen. I'm perfectly fine just waiting to find out, but either way, it's intriguing to me, because it's like, I do find that a lot of the lore can be really interesting. It's just too often I'm so focused on staying alive that I'm not paying attention to the lore as much as it's interesting to me. So
Yeah, and if you ever want to like get into the lore, there's a channel called Body Vidya, who goes into a lot of the Souls lore from the games and goes into like a good explanation because he takes the time going through like each of the items in the games that actually tell you a lot of the lore, and then also going through some other notes and stuff that have been left around and messages. So he does a good breaking down to explain stuff that happens, whether it's with the characters or completely areas as well. So if you do want to go down that sort of rabbit hole, you can definitely check that channel out.
Right. Yeah, I definitely will. I think I saw one of his videos pop up in my feed, but I didn't watch it because I at least want to play through the game before I'm looking at lore stuff. And I am planning to do every optional boss fight, because even though I know that they're going to be, some of them are going to be really difficult, I also I want to do it. Like, I've put off this long playing the game. I've been wanting to get through it, and I don't feel like I will be satisfied until I've beaten every boss in the game. And regardless of how difficult that might be, part of me, even though I know it's not going to be true, part of me thinks there's no way that there's any other boss fight that's going to be as difficult as Ornstein and Smough. I know that's probably not actually true, and that there are probably much more difficult bosses, but the thing that was most difficult about them was the fact that there's two of them at once coming at me, and too often I'd be trying to attack Ornstein, and then Smough would blindside me and kill me. And that was the biggest issue I had with that. And I mean, like, I didn't have nearly as many issues with the gargoyles, for example, even though, of course, there was two of them at once. But with those other two, it's just like big pain in the butt. So I know there's going to be more difficult bosses, obviously, especially in the later games as well. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I have no idea how it's going to be. I just know that I want to actually go through and do all of them, because I won't feel like I can actually try out any other Souls game until I complete this one as close to 100% as possible. I don't know necessarily how reasonable it is to get all achievements, because I'm guessing probably at least some of them would be tied to doing New Game Plus and everything, which like I'm mixed on whether I would want to. Maybe by the end I'll feel differently, because I know that New Game Plus I'll at least retain my power at the very least, or retain my stats. I don't know beyond that. I don't know how all of it works, but yeah.
Yeah, I will say that with the exception of the DLC bosses, Ornstein and Smough are going to be at least near the top-rated hardest enemies of the game. There are probably maybe only two other bosses that, from what I've heard, are considered to be around that difficulty or higher. But other than that, those two, for just the base game itself, are the hardest ones. And everything else would just be the DLC ones.
Right. And either way, I mean, like, I'm not expecting anything to be a cakewalk. I know it's going to be difficult no matter what. So I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. And I will get through in whatever pace I have to get through it. Hopefully I won't hit a wall that just makes me unwilling to continue. I think when I was playing on Switch, I didn't really hit a wall like that. I mean, granted, there were times where I got very frustrated, but the only real reason why I stopped playing was because I got my Steam Deck and jumped back into Elden Ring on there because that's what I really wanted to play anyway. And then I fell off of Elden Ring and I kept meaning to go back to Dark Souls, but I just never quite had the motivation. And then, I was like having issues with, I know the Valley of the Drakes was giving me a lot of problems. And granted, I wasn't really supposed to go there yet. It's just more that I happened to wander into that area. But yeah. Anyway, spent a lot of time talking about Dark Souls. Probably like past half hour has been just talking about Dark Souls. So either way, I'm still enjoying it. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm not giving up on New Land of Ruins at all. I just haven't really had as much time to play today because I was cleaning most of the day. So, yep. All right. Any other thoughts on anything before we get into the news?
No, sir.
All right. So, of course, we previously talked about the fact that Tango Gameworks had shut down. Microsoft closed the studio, and of course, Tango Gameworks, best known most recently for Hi-Fi Rush, but as well as things like The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. But they have been purchased, taken over, and revived by PUBG's publisher Krafton. And they are planning to bring Hi-Fi, to make the sequel to Hi-Fi Rush 2. So Hi-Fi Rush 2 is planned. They're planning on expanding the IP, and yeah. So your thoughts?
It definitely is a bit of surprise. Considering what we thought, how we thought things were going to turn out. It's just definitely great, and I'm also very thrilled to see that the previous employees have been invited back to come back to work for Tango Gameworks, which is great. So anyone who had been unemployed or hadn't found a new job yet, that they can come back and continue as they had been before. So I think that's definitely good news there. I'm glad that they were able to actually bring the company back, because after all the work that Tango had put out in before with Hi-Fi Rush, with Evil Within, with Ghostwire Tokyo, I think Microsoft shutting them down was very premature. Like, there was no reason, especially considering the fact that Microsoft said they wanted more games like Hi-Fi Rush and the games that Tango had made, and then they just axed the studio. Which,
well, they did that. They said that after they axed the studio.
After. which was horrible. But I am glad though that they weren't being very stingy. Like, no, we have the IPs. We want to keep them. So at least I'm glad they're relinquishing those, even though I believe the article said that Krafton isn't going to be doing anything with, or at least the games that have already been released with Hi-Fi Rush and the Evil Within games. So it's definitely great to see that the game's coming back. I haven't played Hi-Fi Rush. In fact, I believe I got an email from Fanatical saying that the game is on sale for 48%. So I might pick it up and maybe give it a whirl, but I haven't played it yet. I've heard that it's good. I'm not certain how well I'll do because I'm not the best with rhythm-based games.
Yeah.
but I'll see. It definitely was interesting enough that I wanted to give it a shot. So like I said, I might get it from Fanatical, and give it a shot. But I am glad though that the company is coming back, and that the employees will can come back as well. So that's definitely great news. One thing that I'm just curious about is who would still be stepping in for Shinji Mikami, since it didn't seem like he had a real successor for when he left. So that I am interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that, on all of what you said. It's definitely, it's great that this is happening. I do wish that they had access to the other IPs. I mean, granted, at least in the case of Evil Within, not having Shinji Mikami involved, I can understand why they wouldn't want to necessarily continue that. And I don't care about the Evil Within personally. Ghostwire Tokyo is one I've really wanted to play. I just haven't bought it yet. Mostly because I've just been waiting for a really good sale. Mostly because it's like, if I'm going to buy the game, I want it to... I'm probably not going to get to it right away. So if I'm going to spend money on a game, I want it to be cheap enough to where I don't have to feel guilty about buying it and not playing it right away. So... But either way, I think it's great that Hi-Fi Rush is going to be able to continue. I'm curious to see what they end up doing with it. What would be really cool, and, beating this drum again, make a Hi-Fi Rush Metroidvania. 2D Metroidvania. Well, 3D would be great too, but 2D Metroidvania. They don't even necessarily have to make it entirely the rhythm-based thing. I don't know. I don't know how much of the rhythm base is like, if you don't do the rhythm base, you will fail, versus it just makes things easier when you get the rhythm right. Either way, it's a game that I've wanted to play for a while. From the second I saw it, it's like, okay, this game looks fantastic, even though I too am not really a fan of rhythm games. Which is funny, because you would think the fact that I play a rhythm instrument, I definitely have rhythm. It's coordination that I have. It's reaction times that I seriously lack. I have such bad reaction times. And it's why I've never been into any of the other rhythm games. But I don't know, the game just looks great. And it's another one, once again, I've waited for a good enough discount. Right now, 48% off. Like, that's a good price, because that would be, like $15, give or take. But it's still just a situation where, like, can I justify buying that if I'm not going to play it right away? And furthermore, of course, I'm, very deep in Dark Souls right now. And God of War Ragnarok is coming out in just over a month. And I'm planning to play that, though I do need to mod my PS4 so I can get my save transferred before that happens, because I do not really want to start over if I don't have to. And of course, I have so many games to play already. But either way, I'm glad that this is coming back. And I'm glad that they're going to be able to continue that from that standpoint. Of course, why Microsoft didn't just sell the studio in the first place? Why didn't they think of doing that? I really think it's just higher-ups at Microsoft, probably Satya Nadella in particular, who, he's more or less running the show. And so... They don't know anything about video games. They don't care, and whatever. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
One thing I will say is, maybe this is something you could check out. This is probably the only rhythm game that I played that actually was very intriguing and somewhat addicting. It's a game called Thumper.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
Okay, yeah. So, originally I got it for the Switch, but I really played it on PC. It's interesting enough, and it's simple enough somewhat as far as the controls, and I feel like that somewhat makes it easier. But sometimes it's just getting the rhythm down that was annoying. Since you only technically have 2 attempts per level.
Yeah, I don't like rhythm games because my reaction time is just so terrible. Like, half the time I'm looking at the button icon and then I press the completely wrong button, and I do that so often because my reaction times are so far off, and that's the reason why I don't play those games. Or I remember, back when Guitar Hero and subsequently Rock Band were, really big. I tried Guitar Hero, and even though I play guitar, at that point, I think I'd only been playing for 2 or 3 years, but, now I've been playing over 20 years. It's like, I play guitar, but playing guitar is not the same as pressing buttons on a plastic guitar. It's just not the same thing at all. And, granted, a lot of the songs that they would be playing anyway, I couldn't play on a real guitar either, but it's not a matter of rhythm, it's a matter of skill. And those games, it's entirely rhythm and reaction. But on a regular guitar, it's more than anything, it's a matter of skill and practice. I mean, some people, of course, just have immense talent, ability to where, you give them a bunch of notes on strings, they can very easily pick those out, and they can, do all the complicated, finger movements and everything. For me, I do strumming and I do chords. That's what I can do. And I can do it pretty well. I can usually play stuff by ear, more or less, or, at least in terms of, you give me the chords, I listen to the song, I can usually pick it up pretty easily. But if you do all that fancy schmancy stuff, all the really complicated stuff, it's like, I respect the heck out of people who can do that, who have the time, the patience to learn how to do that, and or just the natural skill. But that's not me. That's just not me, and I don't really care to do that because that's not why I picked up the guitar in the first place. So, anyway, yeah, that's way off topic. All right, any other thoughts on that one?
No, sir.
All right, so we have kind of a double whammy here in terms of basically evidence that Epic Games exclusivity is garbage for the sales of a game. So we recently got our numbers for the top selling games in the US for the month of June, because typically it takes a little bit after the end of the month to actually get that information. So we got it early this month. I think it was probably last week, give or take. So the top selling games in the US for the month of June, number 3 was Kingdom Hearts Integrum Masterpiece, which is all of the Kingdom Hearts games together. Now, before this, I don't know where it had been, but it was definitely significantly lower on the sales charts. But top 3 of all games that has sold in the US for the month of June is this collection, and you know why? Because it came to Steam. And to go along with this, we recently got information about how Alan Wake 2 has been doing, which has been an Epic Games exclusive because it was funded entirely by Epic. And it's like, okay, understandable. But even though this is one of the highest rated games last year, won multiple Game of the Year awards, very highly critically praised and praised by fans, the game has not even made up its entire budget yet, let alone started gaining royalties. It's not even there yet. It's at roughly about 80% in terms of the amount of money it's made. And of course, games like this, while to some degree they will still continue to sell over time, the reality is that this game has been Epic exclusive, which means it definitely has not sold anywhere near as well on PC as it could if it was on Steam or GOG or any other platform besides exclusive to the Epic Games Store. So we have one example, a very clear example. I mean, it's not the only example. We've mentioned other things before, like Final Fantasy VII Remake, as an example. Among our Borderlands 3 is another one. There's a variety of different games that came out as Epic exclusives first, and when they came to Steam, they sold significantly better. But Kingdom Hearts is a clear example of what happens when you do Epic exclusivity versus how it sells on Steam. I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised in the least if by the end of this year, Kingdom Hearts on Steam will have already outsold the Epic Games version, even though it was on Epic Games for 3 years before it came to Steam. So, your thoughts?
All right, so I'm going to start things off one at a time. So I'm going to start with Kingdom Hearts. And according to the chart that you sent, actually last month, Kingdom Hearts Integral Masterpiece was ranked at 399. To go from 399 to third place, that is a massive jump. But as you said, it's the sole reason that this happened was because it was released on the Steam store, which is something that people have wanted for a long time. Like when it was first announced for PC, I'm certain people are thinking, oh yeah, it's going to come to Steam. Epic Games exclusive for 2 years. And now, Square Enix realized maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. Maybe exclusives aren't the end all be all. And so then they said, let's put this game on Steam. Maybe it'll work. Maybe, we can make a little bit of profit from this. Oh, what happened here?
Imagine
all this
that.
money's coming in? Wow. Oh my goodness. It's like magic. Like what? Like, of course it is. Like a lot of people have been waiting for it. A lot of people were hoping that, because of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that this was going to come over. I mean, we were right. It wasn't going to come over. We had to wait a longer period of time, but it came over. And the fact was we were going to wait because we did not want to use Epic Games Store. And that's the main point that I don't know why these developers don't get through their thick skulls, or maybe it's just the publishers themselves who don't get through their thick skulls that gamers care about where they actually buy. They're not like, they think of gamers as just as numbers or just like as corporate terms. They don't think about how the gamers actually care about the games that they buy. Like we just don't just think don't get me wrong, there are a lot of gamers out there who just are just in the mindset of just consume products and be excited for next product. That's not the mindset of every gamer. We actually will think about what we buy. So if there's a game that's exclusive to the Epic Games Store, we're not gonna think, oh, product is only available on Epic Games. I must consume product, so I will buy from Epic Games. They're like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're going to wait, and if you don't decide to port your games over to the other stores, then we just won't buy it. And that's what happened. And now, Kingdom Hearts jumped up from 399 to 3 in the matter of a month because the game was ported to Steam. This old game, this old collection. I mean, it was at least, because I'm pretty certain it was released for a while on console before coming to PC. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain it was available only on console for maybe a year. Then was brought to Steam. I mean, not Steam, to PC before 2 years going by and then coming to Steam. So this game has been out for a while, but people still were going to wait. And even if people had waited, they probably double dipped as well because they wanted the Steam version.
Yeah.
So that's what this very proves here, is that the fact that it's not worth it. And switching over to Alan Wake. So yes, Epic Games did fund it, but the question that Remedy needs to ask itself is that worth it in the long run? Because I do know that sales should improve somewhat because of the fact that they made a physical version, which is something that console gamers really wanted and were upset about, was the fact that there was no physical version. And so they just didn't buy it. So I know that, sales should definitely improve because of that. They might not improve completely. They might not be completely drastic, but they should still improve. The numbers should still go up. But I know for a fact that if Remedy released this on Steam, it would do so much better.
Yep.
The numbers would just go up. I mean, I don't know where it would be on this chart, but it definitely would be a huge improvement. I mean, it might even be better. Who knows? It could possibly have been number 1. I don't know, but it would have been great. And that's just something that I really think that publishers need to understand. And even the fact that, CD Projekt Red, they're the owners of Witcher games, they're the owner of Cyberpunk, and they are the owners of GOG. They could have made their games exclusive to GOG. They could have done that. They made the games. They made those games themselves. They published them themselves. Yeah. But they were smart. They said, "Why limit our games to this one platform
Yep.
when there's money to be made. So we will go and release our games on our competitors, on our competitions stores. We'll still get money, they'll get their cut, but we'll still make money, and it's a win-win.
Yep.
So they were smart. Witcher 3 sold a lot of copies. Cyberpunk sold a lot of copies. And why did they sell a lot of copies? Because they weren't exclusive.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing that... And I'm not saying that, you know, if you make these games, if Epic made their own games, like, I'm not saying like Epic should release Fortnite on Steam or something like that, because they made the games themselves. But for these third-party developers, you need to think, is the stipend that you receive from Epic worth the amount of sales that you'll lose because you didn't release it on Steam? And I mean, also at a certain point, you know, maybe some people will rather wait even a bit further if the game's already been out for a while to get it on sale. Like, I only got Kingdom Hearts because it was on sale. I mean, also because I got through Instant Gaming rather than another place. But I wasn't going to pay a full price for that collection, especially because of the fact that the console version is so much cheaper. Like, I think the base price is $40. So I don't know why the PC version is $70.
Because
Plus
it's better.
more.
Well, it's because the PC version is the only one where you can get above 30 frames per second.
Oh, oh man. But yeah, they definitely need to learn. I mean, Square thankfully has learned their lesson, and they're dedicated to making their games multi-plat. But everyone else who is going to be publishing their games on PC needs to take a step back and look at what has happened with every other publisher, and realizing that, you know, maybe it's not worth, you know, this exclusivity deal. Maybe, sure, we're getting X amount of dollars from Epic Games, but we could probably make more if we just release it on every platform. That's just my thoughts.
Well, I want to just quickly give an honorable mention. I noticed that number 4 on the top selling games for June 2024 is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Excellent game. I still need to get back to it and finish it. I'll probably just be working on it periodically though, because I love it, but I'm also, you know, like knee deep in Dark Souls right now. As for my thoughts on this overall thing, I mean, some of it I kind of basically already mentioned, but this is proof that Epic Games exclusivity is just, it's not good for a game. A game will not sell as well on Epic. I mean, the fact that you jumped 395 positions, no, 396 positions, from 399 all the way up to number 3, just by releasing on Steam, is huge. And I mean, I don't know where Alan Wake 2 is currently. I'd have to actually like bring up the, maybe go to Circana's site and find out what they have to say. I mean, you know, where Alan Wake 2 is currently. But I guarantee you drop that game on Steam, it's going to jump up dramatically because a lot of people really want to play it. You know, Alan Wake was a great game. And Alan Wake 2, despite the fact that they had definitely some influence from Sweet Baby, it's still, everything I've heard is that it's great. I really would love to play it. Now, of course, it's easier for me to wait because I want to play all the other Remedyverse games before I jump into Alan Wake 2. Because, I mean, I've already played Alan Wake, and I played Control, minus some of the DLC that I have yet to finish. And I have the Max Payne games. I have Quantum Break. And I can't remember if there's any others. I think those are all the ones other than Alan Wake 2. So, but I know that there's like references and connections and that sort of thing. Like Control has some references to Alan Wake. And I mean, it has like stuff that makes it very clear that they're connected to each other in a way. It's just like, that's fantastic. I love what they do with the story. Their story is just, it's out there, but not like in the convoluted way that you have Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear, especially Kingdom Hearts. But it's still just like, this is super cool. And I mean, of course, I loved Control. It was a fantastic game, and it's another one that I want to get back to one of these days and go back and do the rest of the DLC, and then, it was so good, so good. Gameplay was absolutely fantastic. I mean, like, Alan Wake was a completely different style of game because of the fact that you don't have like the same kind of combat, because it's mostly like you use a flashlight to stun an enemy, then you can shoot them. But it's very like the survival horror kind of thing. And in general, I'm not like into that, but I just found Alan Wake was so intriguing to where it kept me interested, even though there was definitely times where I was just like, this is a little too much for me. It's a little too creepy for me. But I made it through the whole game, and I enjoyed it overall, and I definitely recommend it. But Alan Wake 2 just looks like it's going to be even better. And everything I've heard is that it's better, even though somehow a character who was in the first game magically became black. So, and make sure to tell you in Alan Wake 2 that she's black and that she's empowered. So, it is what it is. But like that like, honestly, that doesn't bother me that much, because the rest of the stuff is what interests me more. I just find the way that Remedy writes their stories to be so interesting. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, they put this on Steam, it would sell significantly better. There's no question about it. And I hadn't even thought about GOG, or about CD Projekt Red. The fact that they put their games on multiple platforms, even though they could have easily made Cyberpunk an exclusive to GOG Galaxy, they decided not to do that, and they reaped the benefits. I mean, of course, obviously they also had it on consoles, which, without question, that the game sold best on consoles, well, maybe not. But I mean, it sold extremely well on consoles, even if it was very broken when it launched. But, it's just, it's really a situation where these companies just need to learn that exclusivity is not going to benefit them. People are not going to flock to this other platform, specifically on PC. You try to force people who are playing games on PC to flock over to a specific launcher, and you will get some people, but you're not going to get nearly as many, because so many of us who game on PC, we have such huge backlogs that we're just like, okay, I can wait. I have other games to play. I already have more games to play than I have time to play. I still want to play this. I want to play this. I want to play this. I'll start a game and be like, oh, that's shiny. I want to try that too. And it's just like, that's being a PC gamer. And because we have such a wealth of options, we're perfectly fine waiting. And hopefully, Epic Games will realize that keeping this game exclusive is a losing strategy. Or maybe they have some type of contractual agreement with Remedy to where it's like, okay, let's say 5 years they have to wait before they can release it somewhere else. It may very well be that much. It may even be, it may be permanent exclusivity. Who knows? The only way I could see it not being permanent is either if they specifically set something up within their contract where they said, you have this many years that it has to be exclusive before you can publish it elsewhere. Or the other potential thing would be if Epic ultimately decided that they were willing to publish it elsewhere, which could happen. I mean, because you look at like Ubisoft, for example, for years and years and years, they had a bunch of their games that were exclusive to Ubisoft Connect. But then eventually they got to a point where they realized we can't do this anymore. And they started putting their games on Steam. And I think they're even doing most, if not all of them, day one. Maybe I'm wrong on that front. Even if they're not doing it day one, they're not. I mean, they might wait a little bit of time, but they are putting their games on Steam. You can buy any of their exclusives on Steam for the most part. I'm not sure if like the most recent Assassin's Creed, for example, is on there. Actually, look that up real quick. But let's see here. Assassin's Creed. I think the most recent one is not on Steam yet. Looks like, so they have Valhalla and everything before that. Okay, so it looks like they probably do not have the most recent Assassin's Creed game, which I can't even remember the name of it.
Yeah.
So
Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Not Shadows. I'm thinking of the one that came out last year. I just can't remember what it's called.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember when that came out last year.
Yeah. I mean, it's one that's set in Iraq. It's more of a traditional style Assassin's Creed game. But anyway, so they're still having an exclusivity window. But the fact of the matter is, we know that the game will eventually come over because that's the way they've been doing it so far. I mean, in recent years. I mean, Valhalla was exclusive for a while. It's on Steam now. You can get it. And yes, you still technically have to have an Ubisoft account in order to play the game. But you can launch it directly from Steam without having to separately use a different launcher. So hopefully Epic will eventually get to that point. But I'm not holding my breath. Either way, I mean, it would be smart for them to do that. It's just, that's been them being smart, and that's giving them too much credit. All right, any other thoughts on that?
Just one question I actually had, and I can't remember if anything was mentioned before, so
Oh, it's Assassin's Creed Mirage was the name of it.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
Do you think, because it wasn't mentioned in the article, do you think that the Max Payne 1 and 2 games will be Epic exclusive?
Yeah, the remakes, I would say if Epic is funding them, yes. But it's not entirely clear whether or not they are. I mean, they said that Remedy is working on Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes and on Control 2. I think that there was also like a Control multiplayer game, which is interesting. Still not something I would play because I want to play their single player games, but yeah. So we'll see on that. But I guess we'll have to wait until they like officially announce and, you know, say whether it's being funded by Epic or something else. I hope for their sake it's not being funded by Epic, because their game will do a lot better if it can just go everywhere all at once. All right. Any other thoughts on that, or before we move to the next topic?
No, sir.
All right, you want to cover this Red Dead Redemption leak?
All right, yes. So, on Twitter the other day, Wario64 put out a tweet of something that was noticed on the PSN store, which was for Red Dead Redemption. And this was the text that was there, which I checked recently. It has been since removed, but it said this originally. Experience the epic Western adventures that defined a generation. Now on PC for the first time ever. Featuring the complete single-player experiences of both games, including bonus content from the Game of the Year edition, Red Dead Redemption features all of the 2023 console version upgrades, plus PC-specific enhancements including support for increased resolutions and frame rates, multiple displays, and other accessories, plus spatial surround sound. Wow. On the PlayStation Store. You know what? Sony is the biggest advertiser for PC. You know, coming to PS5 and PC. You know, you get to play this version on PSN, or you could get the PC version, which has all these extra things that are not in the console version. But yeah, so like I said, this has been since removed. It's no longer on the page, which is interesting. But personally speaking, I think this definitely exists. The fact that there's so much detail here, you know, saying all these features that are coming out, and saying like, yeah, it's the same as the console version, but there's more stuff coming. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing you see on a Steam page where it's like,
Right.
yeah, here are all the features. We get these ultra widescreen support, uncapped frame rates, special HDR enhancements, full keyboard and mouse support, full controller support. That's the type of thing you see on a Steam page. So I really want to believe that this is real. I think it's real. Why this showed up on the PSN page is beyond me, because that's like not the place you expect to see it. I don't know if it was something, and I don't even know on whose end that is. I mean, I would assume that this is on Rockstar's end, that they accidentally put this on there, but I don't know. Maybe we'll hear something. Maybe we'll hear something in the near future about this. But we've discussed this game before coming possibly to PC, but this just in my mind further cements it for me. But what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, it's definitely real. There's no question about it, and I do think that it was on Rockstar's end, because I doubt that Sony would for any reason even have the PC description to upload. It seems like it had to have been specifically Rockstar that made this mistake. Of course, I am so completely excited about this. Mostly just because of the fact that while I overall have been satisfied with what I played of the Switch version, just considering the fact that it actually has a stable 30 frames per second, which the PS3 version that I played previously did not, and the fact that it is a handheld version. It's like I was happy with the Switch version, but knowing that this is officially coming to PC, which obviously we had the leaks from the Rockstar launcher previously already, so we already knew this was coming. This just cements it even further, because it's like the information is very clearly there. It has multiple references to the PC version. It says that it's now on PC for the first time ever. I mean, that's... then of course it lists all the additional features that are specific to the PC version, which I think it is funny, like you said, that it's PlayStation's the best promoter of the PC in this case, but I love this. And of course, also knowing that this is coming to PC, that will be a fantastic comparison to do. Ooh. Looking at these two versions, the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck should easily be able to do 60 frames per second. There's really no reason why it shouldn't. Especially because I'm pretty sure that the PS4 version can do 60. Maybe that's only on PS5, though, that it can do the 60. I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to do 60 on PS4, because it's an old game. But either way, like I love the first Red Dead Redemption, and being able to play it on Steam would be fantastic. If I found out that this was completely not real, then yeah, I would probably end up playing through the rest of it on the Switch. But I mean, like this makes it so there's basically no reason for me to play it on Switch, because yes, I mean for one, now there's a Steam Deck OLED in addition to the Switch OLED, so I have the OLED screen, so the Switch loses that advantage. It's going to probably perform better, so it loses that advantage. Looking as far as visuals, I don't expect it to be really any different, other than maybe supporting HDR. And if it does, then of course that would potentially be a bit better, because the Steam Deck OLED does do HDR. But just being able to do stuff with it in order to make it, look and run better, or at least run better, is really fantastic. And I'm happy that this got leaked. This just further cemented the legitimacy of the original leak that I already thought was real. And knowing that after 14 years since the game originally came out on PS3 and 360, we're finally getting it on PC is fantastic. So, plus also Red Dead Redemption 2 was a great game and looked and ran surprisingly well on the Steam Deck. I mean, technically, you could get it running better on the Steam Deck than on the PS4 and the Xbox One, because I could get a consistent 40 frames per second on the Steam Deck. Now, granted, it may not have looked technically as good, but on the small screen, it really wasn't that noticeable, the difference. I mean, it looked still really good, and I mean, that 40, while it's nowhere near as good as 60, it's still way better than 30. And so, but yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, official PC version, instead of having to emulate it, because the emulation is just not good for this game. Even on my PC, it's trash. It just doesn't emulate well, at least not the PS3 version. I think the 360 version emulates better, but it's still not great. But anyway, yeah, that's what I have to say on that front. All right, so what are your thoughts?
Oh, nothing else. I think that I shared everything else that I primarily had because it definitely, it definitely looks real. I definitely think that this is a real thing. I just want to know when it's going to be officially revealed. I mean,
Yeah.
considering the fact that, we didn't have an E3, but considering the fact that the Summer Games Fest has already come and gone, is this something that could be revealed later this year? Is this something that could be maybe revealed next year? Like, also,
Well,
what's the
Gamescom is
holdup?
next week.
That's true. That's very true.
And Jeff Keighley did say there will be new game announcements. I mean, I don't know if this would be considered a new game, but
Could be. I mean, it's new for PC.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like this will definitely come out before Rockstar puts out GTA 6.
Right, yeah, for sure.
But I just want to know, like, how soon? Like, because I do know they probably don't want to compete with any big game, other big games that come out.
Right.
But I think it's safe enough that they could still put it out sometime this year. I don't see any need. I mean, unless it's some sort of development reason, I don't see why there's a need to push it back. Because I mean, it shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
But I am looking forward to this. Like, this is a game that an old friend of mine, she loved this game. This was probably the only other game she loved apart from Assassin's Creed. So I am interested in finally giving this game a shot. Just because I've heard so many good things about it. But again, it's just a game that I never had because even back on console, I was still just a Nintendo fanboy. So I was going to touch a filthy PS3 or a 360. But, now that I'm on PC and I'm like, okay, yeah, I would like to play this game now that, this is a system that would have the game. And it's funny how after I stopped gaming on Nintendo, then the game's brought over to Nintendo.
Right.
But I definitely would like to play this. And, similar to you, playing this game on the Steam Deck would be great. I have no reason to doubt either that this game shouldn't run at 60. Maybe it could go a little higher than that, but definitely I think 60 should be attainable.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely see. I'm looking forward to it. I just hope that, nothing weird happens and just because Rockstar doesn't have anything exclusive. Like, do they? They don't have any exclusive games sort of thing, do they?
I mean, and they have the Rockstar launcher, but and I think that they may have at times in the past done things exclusive to the Rockstar launcher initially, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely see. But here's to hoping that it comes out this year.
Yep. All right. So we got some information here. Let me just bring up the article from Video Games Chronicle. So developers have been reportedly told not to expect Switch 2 to launch before April 2025. Let me just see if I can find some. According to GamesIndustry.biz's head, Chris Dring, he said no developer I've spoken to expects it to be launching this financial year, which of course the fiscal year for Nintendo goes through the end of March 2025. In fact, they've been told not to expect it in the current financial year. A bunch of people I spoke to hope it's out in April or May time, still early next year, not late. I don't think any of us wants a late launch for Switch 2 because we all want a new Nintendo console. Everyone gets very excited for it, and we don't want that crunch of Grand Theft Auto 6 and Switch and all that kind of stuff on top of each other. And, yeah, so sounds like April at the earliest would be the Switch 2 launch, meaning that it would not make it before the end of the fiscal year. But what are your thoughts on this?
Assuming this is all true, it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't release it in March, same time as the first Switch. But I mean, if they have to push it back to make sure that demand is met, then that's completely fair. Better to slightly delay it and make sure that you have enough units for people to purchase and beat out all the scalpers than to just rush it and have a massive shortage for a long period of time, which definitely isn't good. But at least it's not too far out, like April or May. That's still a couple months later, so it's not too long after. It's not like releasing it in the second half of the year. That definitely would not be as pleasant, but it still sounds fair. I'm wondering though how much developers have worked with the Switch to just out of mild curiosity, just like knowing what their thoughts are on as far as like also when they would expect to ship out any games for it. That's something that I am curious on, but it's definitely something we'll still have to wait and see. And of course, just wondering, when is Nintendo going to officially reveal this thing? Like, that's going to be something. And also, I mean, they probably won't have to, considering the fact that the first Switch was successful, and it's not going to be another issue, or at least I don't think it should be another issue with the Wii U, and how the marketing with that was so bad because people thought it was just an add-on. I think people should be aware of the fact that this is a new console as opposed to the first Switch, because I was going to wonder if Nintendo would do any sort of special marketing like they did with the first Switch. Because the marketing with the first Switch was great, and they even had their whole tour where people could go and test out the system, which I managed to do, and that was a very fun experience. So, I mean, they might not necessarily do the same thing, but will they still market it well? Like, I think, especially since they shouldn't have a problem, but considering the fact that, again, people thought the Wii U was just an add-on for the Wii, and some parents would be confused with the Xbox consoles, as far as like with the One X, the Series X, and like the naming schemes that Microsoft did for the Xbox systems. That messed things up. I'm certain that some poor kid got an Xbox One X when they asked for a Series X. Yeah. But and their parents thought it was the same thing. So I'm hoping that Nintendo markets this well enough that to distinguish, saying like, this is not the same thing as a Switch. Don't buy this thinking you're getting like a new, or don't think this is just like another revised Switch. Like, the OLED still was a bit of a still difference, but like having the second version of the Switch with just like better battery life and whatnot. So hopefully they market this well, but we'll definitely see when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, my big thing is I'm just waiting for the announcement, like the official announcement. Like we know that they're going to announce it sometime before the end of the fiscal year because they already said that was what they were going to be doing. I mean, my expectation, just based on what happened last time, is that they will announce it in October, and whether or not that's actually going to be the case, we'll just have to wait and see. But um, I'm really curious what they're going to do with the marketing, because like the marketing was on point with the first Switch, but it was also something where it felt so new and different, because even though, yes, handheld PCs already existed, in terms of cost and everything, it was just so much different, because the Switch was significantly cheaper than the competition from that standpoint. Now, obviously, the Switch cannot do as much as an actual handheld PC can do. Even the older ones couldn't. I mean, could do probably more than the Switch could do. But the Switch just made it much more approachable for people, and it wasn't a PC, wasn't running Windows. It had a very sleek, simple, albeit a little basic operating system, but it was smooth. It runs well from that standpoint. Everything is. I still think it's very well designed, even if I wish that they had done more with it, like themes and that sort of thing. But it is important that they, obviously, like you said, make this distinct enough to where people can actually, where it's very clear that it's something new. I mean, hopefully, because of how long it's been, people would recognize this is the new console. This is the new Switch, regardless of what they actually call it. Hopefully, they will, at minimum, call it Switch 2. But if not, that they will come up with some name that's clearly different enough. Even if they keep the Switch moniker, as long as they do something that just makes it distinct and not just like new Switch. Because the new thing was dumb for the 3DS. Obviously, we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens here. But I don't think it's unreasonable, the idea of April or May potentially being the launch. The nice thing about it is that they would be able to start a new fiscal year off really strong, because obviously it's going to sell like gangbusters no matter what. I mean, there's no question that the Switch 2 is going to sell extremely well, because the first Switch sold extremely well, and so many people are hungry for a stronger Switch that can do 4K, even if it is just upscaled, which obviously that's all it would be. That has additional features, that hopefully they do some significant quality of life improvements, especially with the joysticks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of things that they could do to make the next Switch better than the first one. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Either way, I'm just anxious to see this thing. I think it would be nice to have that little like break of levity from everything else that's going on in our world and our country and all that, and just give us something good. That's all I'm asking for, Nintendo. Not that it's going to be as good as the Steam Deck OLED or whatever, but they can still do something good, do something different. Make it backwards compatible with all their previous all the games that were on the first Switch, both physical and digital. I mean, my theory, of course, is that they're going to do the same thing that they did basically with 3DS to DS, or DS to 3DS, where the Switch cartridges will still fit in the Switch 2 cartridges will just have like a notch, an additional tab on them, like what they did with the 3DS cartridges. But anyway, I doubt they would reveal it at Gamescom. I think they have to do their own separate event, because they just have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it did so extremely well for them when they revealed the original Switch. And if they do the same thing with the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being called, I think it's going to do significantly better than just putting it through Gamescom. Although I actually would not be surprised if Gamescom is where we get to see the PS5 Pro, assuming
Yeah,
that's a real thing.
That's right. I
But
mean, I think it's real.
yeah, I mean, like I have very little doubts that it's real, especially because they did do the PS4 Pro. So there's very little reason to think they wouldn't do a PS5 Pro. And I can't remember what the original sources were for it, other than just rumors and speculation. But I'm pretty sure that they were more credible sources, unlike some of the stuff with the Switch Pro, which mostly just seemed like it was people blowing smoke. Other than the potential idea that the Switch Pro was originally a thing, and then they decided to save those features for a Switch successor. So, anyway, that's all I got for that. All right, so Square Enix could be making what would be a massive mistake and potentially moving the third part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy to Unreal Engine 5. Now, what I've read here is that apparently they think that this could potentially be a way to speed up development. I mean, whether or not changing engines would help to speed up development. But, well, I'm just going to let you give your thoughts on this before I get into mine.
All right. Yeah, I honestly do not know if this would be a good way to speed up development or not. Granted, I haven't, I'm not a game developer, so I don't know how working in different engines work. But considering the fact that UE5 is a relatively new engine, and sure, they made Forspoken in Unreal Engine 5.
I don't think they did.
I wouldn't say they actually have enough, time or experience.
No,
working with
Forspoken, I think, was in the Luminous engine.
Okay. So, considering the fact that none of their games have been in the Unreal Engine 5 engine, that just sounds so redundant. I don't know how they would expect using something that is new to them to be faster than using something that they've already worked with and known for a good while. Right. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know. And considering the fact that there are still bugs in Unreal Engine 5, I mean, granted, their Unreal Engine has certain bugs here and there depending on the version you're using, but as a whole, though, like UE5 still has some quirks to work out. So I don't know if this would definitely be a good thing. It might make things harder for the developers. I mean, my initial thought was that before I even read the fact that it's supposed to make the time faster, I thought, well, this is gonna make things longer. And I mean, I don't know when, like at what point it was decided that this would work. So I don't know, like, what work has already been done, and depending on how much work has been done, could that be transferred over to Unreal Engine 5? I don't know, but yeah, this just seems like it's going to... personally speaking, it doesn't seem like a good idea. I mean, sure, moving up from Unreal Engine 4 to 5 probably isn't going to be that big of a difference with, like, making stuff work, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to me at all. And we probably would see something maybe. Well, never mind. They already stole it from me. I'll say 2027, but that's when Final Fantasy VII is going to actually have its 30th anniversary. That would probably be the earliest we would see the game, I would say. Maybe a bit later. But I mean, if they try to rush it, I don't know. I don't know. This just doesn't personally seem like too good of an idea, but that's just what I think.
Well, I agree. I think it's a terrible idea. And I'll give you a few reasons. For starters, well, I do want to clarify. Of course, I don't know for sure if maybe Unreal 5 is easier to use. Maybe that's the reason why they're looking at this, is that Unreal 5 is just easier to use in general. But even if it is, it's also much harder to optimize, which is why so many the games that have come out in Unreal Engine 5 have had terrible performance. I mean, like, even I mean, especially on consoles, which, that's where it makes even more of a difference, because you're having to deal with more limited hardware. People have said that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in particular, in order to get 60 frames per second, they have to have like a really bad Vaseline smear on there in order for it to work. And the idea that, and then with actual Unreal Engine 5 games like, for example, gosh, what's it called? It's like I can't remember the name of it. It's like a game where it's first person magic. Oh gosh, what's it called? I'm gonna find it on my wish list. Mortals of Avium. That one is supposed to have like really bad visuals when you do the higher frame rates on consoles. And I mean, that's an Unreal Engine 5 game. Then you have, I'm trying to remember what some other ones. Well, there's Hellblade 2. That's another one. Terrible performance. I mean, the fact that you're only getting 30 frames per second and it's not even rendering at 1080p, let alone rendering at 4K. I mean, there's just all sorts of issues with this idea, and the only reason I could see this being a potentially good idea for them is if it's easier to use than Unreal 4. But they've been using Unreal 4 for quite a while, and their games look incredible in Unreal 4. I mean, you have Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 looked incredible already. They've done some upgrades when they released it on PS5, but mostly just in terms of the frame rate. But I mean, it's like, it already looked incredible. Then you have Rebirth, which looks just as good, if not even better. And you're thinking of using a new engine that's significantly more resource intensive just so that you can be on the newest engine. And even if it speeds up development, I mean, like, I think that more likely than not, this idea of them releasing in time for the 30th anniversary for the third part makes sense, that they would want to do that. And perhaps by switching to Unreal Engine 5, that's more doable. I'm really skeptical about this, especially because of how it's going to affect performance. And of course, I know that PlayStation fanboys in particular will completely defend it, even if it's only 30 frames per second, because it's more cinematic and everything else. But it's just a mistake. Now, potentially, assuming PS5 Pro is a thing, it might not matter too much. They might actually be able to get the 60 frames more easily without having to sacrifice so much on the visual side of things. But either way, I think this is a bad idea, and we'll have to wait and see what they decide to do. I know that originally, Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm pretty sure was in Luminous Engine, and then they switched it over to Unreal Engine 4. And obviously that ended up working out, even though it just meant, the game took longer to come out, because it was announced, I think, in 2015, and then it actually came out in 2020. So there's that at least. But I just don't think that switching engines again is a good idea. I think they should just stick with Unreal Engine 4, because the game already looks incredible. It doesn't need to look any better. And it would be one thing if Unreal 5 was like more efficient and actually ran better, but it isn't, and it doesn't. So why would you do that? But I don't know. Anyway, I could go on and on about it, but I think I've said enough.
And one thing I do want to mention, while I was saying that, using something you're not familiar with is a bad thing, I mean, I do understand that there is kind of a catch-22 situation where, you know, where like something is new so you don't know it, but you need to use it so you can know it. But I think
Right.
that this isn't probably the best time to use Unreal Engine 5. Like maybe if they did something else, like
Yeah, do it for a new
maybe
game.
some sort, yeah, like, or like some sort of double A class title. Like I think that's something where you can work with it so that way you don't have to take so much risk because you're not making a big budget game,
Right.
but at the same time you can still be more familiar with it. Maybe you can try to optimize the engine more so that way it's not a complete resource hog, and like more demanding for the hardware. I think that's probably the best thing to do. But just like right now, using it for a big budget title, I mean, yeah, it definitely just doesn't seem like it's something that's worth it right now. And like, as you said, the game, like what Square's done using Unreal Engine 4 is great. I mean, the engine has been around for a long while and still looks good, and they make the games look great. I mean, it's sort of like in a similar fashion. It's kind of like what Rocksteady did with the Arkham games. Like all four. Well, I mean, also that was technically WB Montreal, but all four of the Arkham games had been on Unreal Engine 3. It's like from Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and Arkham Knight. Like how they made all those
Unbelievable.
games, and it was still on the same engine. Now, sure, like people have mentioned that Arkham Knight used like a modified version of Unreal Engine 3, but at the end of the day, it was still Unreal Engine 3.
Right, exactly.
And the fact that they still made those games look that great and just like improve because they got more familiar with what they had been using. You know, I feel like they could sort of maybe do the same thing with Final Fantasy VII. Like they've done so much with it, they've worked with it, they're familiar with it. For the last game in the trilogy, just go ahead and finish it up with Unreal Engine 4. If for your next title, for like Final Fantasy, what's that gonna be? 16?
17.
For 17, if you want to go ahead and try using Unreal Engine 5, go right ahead. But I think just like finish what you have. Like, don't make this situation more complicated than it is. I mean, you already have 3 games from a game that was originally 1 game. So just like try to work with what you have here. You're already familiar with it. Just finish it up. You know, if you can manipulate it some more where you can make it look even better than it was before, have at it. But don't make things more difficult on your end by trying to use this new engine. And even if it makes things a little bit easier, people are not going to be happy if, the performance suffers greatly because of it.
Yeah. Well, but it can play at a cinematic 24 frames per second.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I guess I'll just watch it on YouTube then,
Right.
Getting that cinematic experience.
Yep. Yeah. It's a terrible idea, and we'll see what happens, whether or not they decide to do this. I mean, Square Enix does know how to get things out of their engines. I mean, the engines they work with. They're good at what they do from that standpoint, and I mean, obviously, Forspoken was an example of what not to do, but I mean, that's also just a different situation, so it is what it is. All right, any final thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right, so let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right, so I kind of had to redo my recommendation and also dissuasion because of new developments. So initially I was just going to recommend Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, but what I will instead do is recommend playing Chain of Memories before you play Re-Chain of Memories, even if it's just a little bit, just so you can understand the combat. Because I think that playing through a more simplified version before going to the 3D version helps out tremendously. It definitely helped me adjust to the remake version. So I would definitely recommend playing Chain of Memories a little bit before you play it, before you play the remake version.
Good, good, good. Oh, just a quick side note before I get into my recommendations. Something I forgot to mention earlier. The music for Ornstein and Smough, fantastic. So good. It's like that's one thing that made the fight much more bearable is because that music is so good. So, okay. But anyway, my recommendation, I actually have a couple here. One of those is saying specifically for if you want to go through Dark Souls, if you want to finally give it a chance, or if you struggled with it in the past, that sort of thing, a good resource to go to get help, really great guides that are super helpful, is a YouTube channel called Fightin' Cowboy. I'd heard of him before in relation to other Soulsborne games, and his guides are just super detailed. You know, he gives 100% walkthroughs, really helpful tips. I mean, he knows his stuff, and he makes everything look effortless. But I used him a little bit. I mean, I've only used him a tiny bit, basically just like to help me find some collectibles that I was trying to find in the catacombs in order to complete that. But yeah, his guides are very helpful. I think actually I looked at his a bit for Sense Fortress as well, just for finding a couple of things that I initially had some trouble with. So yeah, Fightin' Cowboy for Dark Souls, or any Souls game really, for help with that. At least, well, any of the big Souls games. Dark Souls, Elden Ring, he probably has done Lies of P, things like that. So there's that. But as a completely different type of recommendation, if you ever have issues with sleeping at night, there is a certain brand of pillow that for a long time I had heard about, and I was just very skeptical about the claims. But I got one about 2 months ago, I think. And I gotta say, my sleep has definitely been better these past 2 months than it was before that. My Pillow. There's lots of different people who promote these pillows. It's surprising to me because the thing is that, like, literally for probably the past 15 years, I've always had more of a flat pillow, like a flat, firm pillow. And not like flat, like maybe about this thick, not very thick though. And it's like, that's all I was really comfortable with. And this thing is big and beefy. I mean, it's huge. It's like one of Trogdor's arms. But it does a really good job maintaining its shape, and I'm surprised at how much it's helped. One of the things that it does really well, I'm a side sleeper, and so an issue that I would always have is there would be just enough circulation cut off to where I'd have to keep rolling over because of, you know, like my arm getting tingly, that sort of thing. And so, you know, I'd be rolling over off and on throughout the night. And it seems like what it actually wasn't because I was laying on my arm, but rather because since I didn't have enough support for my head, it kind of pinches the nerves a little bit in my neck. And so that's what was causing that. And I mean, I was used to that. I mean, it was, and so my sleep would kind of vary quite a bit. But this one, because it maintains its shape really well, regardless of how much you roll over, I haven't had that issue since I started using this. So yeah, My Pillow. And obviously I am not sponsored in any way. I could name a few different promo codes you could use from various channels I watch, but I'm not going to because that would make it a little bit too obvious. Even though the fact that I'm promoting My Pillow may even be something where you're like, oh, well, I know what kind of person he is now. But what I will say is that you can get them on Amazon. And that's actually, I think, where I bought mine. And they come in all sorts of different sizes. You pretty much just need to... I think that they give you like recommendations on firmness level that you would want to get depending on like your weight, whether you're a side sleeper or not. And then, of course, depending on the size of your bed, you're getting different size pillows. So, yeah. So, My Pillow.
Nice.
Just make sure you actually run it through the dryer before you use it, because otherwise it'll be really chunky and it doesn't feel good to sleep on. I mean, they tell you to do that, and I thought I did it right the first time, but apparently I didn't, because it was still really chunky the first night I tried using it. I ran through the dryer again the next day, and then since then it's been great.
Nice. Yeah, going back to Fine Cowboy, definitely a great channel, because I did use a couple of his videos for Code Vein, just for like navigating through a couple areas. So yeah, that's definitely a good recommendation there.
I might have to check out Code Vein, because I do have that one. I think I might have even gotten the code from you on that one, now that I think about it. I think that was one of the free codes you gave out at one point. Or I think you might have gotten it at a Humble Bundle and then gave me the code. Maybe that's what it was. Anyway, that's another one that I want to check out, maybe after I finish Dark Souls. We'll see. All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be avoiding falling into certain pitfalls that are, or rather, rabbit holes financially. Just because this is something that I sort of was going through because of the one Kickstarter project for the Paragon card game. And then I saw a couple others that are interesting, and I'm just like, do I really need to be spending this much money on different Kickstarter projects? And I thought, I probably shouldn't be. So I'm not going to. But I certainly want to. So, just avoid certain pitfalls that come your way, financially speaking, where you go for one thing and you just end up potentially getting several different things.
Yeah. Always good advice. All right, well, my dissuasion is related to something that I tried earlier, thinking that it might be helpful, and it was not. So, to kind of give a little bit of background information before I get into this, I've been playing Dark Souls Remastered primarily on the Steam Deck. And one of the reasons, apart from the fact that it's portable, I can pause and turn off as needed, which is obviously super helpful. It's also the back buttons, because being able to sprint holding one of the back buttons instead of having to take my thumb off of the off the joystick for the camera in order to sprint, super helpful. Also kind of nice to be able to use it for sometimes like scrolling between items, or for like using one of my Estus flasks, that sort of thing. So while it is totally possible for me to connect my Steam Deck and use it as a controller, or basically dock my Steam Deck and use it as a controller, initially I wanted to try something else. So what I tried was using the Steam controller, and I have had this for years. And the first time I ever tried it was like Destiny. Didn't work at all for that, but at the time it was running through Battle.net, so it didn't work. Probably would work now, but it has, because it has back buttons on it. And I had also previously tried it on Prototype. Didn't really work well for that either. So I basically hadn't touched this thing in years, but I was thinking, well, maybe I'll give this another shot with Dark Souls, because it does have the back buttons, and those are important to me. However, I'm going to dissuade you from trying to use this for something like Dark Souls, because particularly because it doesn't have a right stick. So you can't, you have to use the touchpad for the camera, which is not, it just doesn't work very well. And, I only tried for like maybe 10 minutes, and I regretted it quickly. Granted, I also had issues with being able to go into to change what the back buttons do, but that was more just because I wasn't in big picture mode, so it wasn't giving me the option to do that. It's a shame, because like I love the way this thing feels, but when you need to be able to have that second stick for the camera, it's just trash. And I think I need to find some game that's going to work well with. I'm sure something that's slower paced would probably work fine. Because, like, I want to actually use this sometime. I just... For Dark Souls, it's just not a good choice. I mean, I wish I had some other, like an Xbox or even a PlayStation controller that actually... Well, Xbox style or a PlayStation style controller that had 2 sticks and had the back buttons, because the back buttons are super helpful for Dark Souls. Especially because, like, for example, if I am, like when I was fighting Ornstein and Smough, being able to sprint, holding down that button, or sprinting to get to them in the first place, get past all those Iron Knights or whatever they're called, so that I could actually get to Ornstein and Smough. You know, I could sprint and then I could press X on top of that to also dodge as needed, so that roll forward so that I could get past the enemies, so that I could get into Ornstein and Smough. But yeah, so I want to dissuade you from trying to use that for Dark Souls unless you start the game that way, or if you're already familiar with the Steam controller and you've used it a bunch and you are in love with it, then by all means do it. But if you are trying to play using that after using just a regular Xbox or PlayStation or even Nintendo Switch controller, you're gonna have a bad time. And definitely don't go into it in boss fights. I didn't do that. I just was at the very beginning of Anna Orlando, and I messed with it a little bit, and it just, like, the fact that it's so much more of a pain to control the camera that way without that second stick, just, I very quickly gave up on it. So that's what I got.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand how you feel, because I tried playing Batman Arkham Origins with that one time, and the camera just did not react the way I thought it would. I thought it would be smooth, but was just very stuttery, and I quickly put that down.
Yeah,
like certain FPS games, it definitely works a whole lot better. From what I've played, but yeah, games like that though, no, just avoid. But hopefully maybe the licensed Hori Steam controller that comes out later this year, maybe that will be what you need.
That one looks pretty cool, but even then it's like I have to really justify buying it. I still want to try using the Steam controller. I just need to find the right game for it, and something that doesn't have any camera controls would probably work better, or something that doesn't require so much messing with the camera, because Dark Souls is just like, if you don't have good cameras controls, you could die so easily. In a game where you can already die so easily with good camera controls. So yeah, that's what I got. All right, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Hopefully, prayerfully, someone should finally be coming out to fix my internet, hopefully within the next week. So if that's the case, then I should be putting out more videos, and depending on what happens, because I'm getting, or at least something could be getting shipped soon, it'll depend on what video I make. So I'm not certain yet, and of course that's still contingent on, when my internet's finally up and running, but we'll definitely see what happens then.
Now, are you able to get a credit on your internet for all the time that you've lost that you've been without internet?
Verizon said they're going to give a credit after someone comes and repairs the cable, just because of the fact that on their end there's no actual disconnection, so they can't gauge how much internet hasn't been used or has been used so far. So until that point comes, we won't know how much of a credit, but we should be getting plenty of credit though.
Okay, well, hopefully. some of these companies are just super scummy. So, all right. Well, you can find me on, first of all, my gaming channel, youtube.com/@thefrozengamer87. This past week, this past Monday, I put out a comparison for the Outer Worlds between the Switch and the Steam Deck OLED. That ended up being a pretty interesting comparison for sure, but it's worth checking out. The Borderlands 3 one I did before, I am blown away by how well it's been doing. It's probably the third or fourth highest viewed of the ones I've done. Like Skyrim is by and far the highest one because that one's at 15,000 views. But I mean, like behind that, it's I think Monster Hunter Rise is there, and I think there's another one that might be above Borderlands 3, but Borderlands 3 is over 7,000 views already, so doing really well. Last I checked, Outer Worlds was still pretty low. Hopefully it'll pick up some more, but either way, I'm glad I did it because it's one I'd been wanting to do for a while. As for the next comparison that's going to be coming up, it will be probably not until either the last week of August or the week after that. I have to gauge it out. It might actually be the first week of September that the next one will be coming up. But this one's going to be really big. This is the first one where I'm going to have 3 systems compared for Persona 4 Golden, which my Switch copy, a physical copy that I got from Limited Run, which I ordered last October, should be here tomorrow. It made it to the post office locally this afternoon, so it should be here tomorrow. And so I'm going to be comparing the Steam Deck OLED, the Switch OLED, and the Vita OLED for Persona 4 Golden. I'm really looking forward to doing that one. It's going to be a lot of work for sure, but that's part of the reason why I'm taking a 2-week break, so that I have more time to just work on it little by little. I mean, of course, I have to record and figure out how much to cut out, because I definitely can't have the entire introduction to that game, because the beginning of the game is like an hour and a half before you even get to the real gameplay. So it's like, I'm going to have to cut out quite a bit in order to make that work well. But either way, that's one I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I haven't figured out the exact way that I'm going to configure it. I think that if I raise my camera mount up to its highest level and then put it on 0.6 zoom, that it should be far enough out to where I can have them stacked on top of each other, all 3 of them. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to do something different with it. But either way, I think it's going to be a really interesting one to look at. So that will be the next comparison for that. But in terms of other stuff on this channel, today, that is Wednesday, August 14th, I put out my review of the Unitech multifunction docking station, which is supposed to work for both the Steam Deck, both the Switch OLED and the Steam Deck OLED, or any other handheld PC or even laptop. So that one just went up, and so check that out. And then this coming Friday is my 11th Dads in Gaming interview going up. That'll be at 7 a.m. Central Time. So by the time you hear this, it will already be up. And that's it for that one. Then I also have a YouTube cooking channel called Not Authentic But Delicious. That's youtube.com/@NABD Cooking. This past Wednesday, I put out a recipe for a Huevos Rancheros pizza. And I said this past Wednesday. That means today, August 14th, I put out that recipe. It's such a fantastic pizza, especially if you enjoy Huevos Rancheros. And just check it out. Very easy recipe, but very, 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 very good. So there's that. That one I will also be taking a break from, though, for a couple weeks. I have more recipes filmed. It's just a matter of putting the videos together, which I also intend to get done at least one of them before first week of September, when I'll be putting out the next set of videos. So, and then of course we have our YouTube channel for this podcast, for Orangebox Podcast. If you are listening to the audio only version, we also have a video version on our YouTube channel that goes up every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time. The audio only version goes up at midnight Central Time on Fridays, and that is on every major podcast platform: Apple Music, YouTube Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Amazon Music. Basically, any place you can find podcasts, you can find the audio only version if you don't care about the video. The video version that we put up, it's an opportunity, of course, to see our mugs if you so desire, if you're curious what we look like. Of course, in addition to that, we also will have clips of whatever games we've been playing, sometimes featuring our epic moments when those come up, sometimes not so much if we have issues with recording, like I have had with the Steam Deck at times. They need to improve that. And then we'll usually, like, if there's any big games that have been announced, new trailers, that sort of thing, or like if a Nintendo Direct or an Xbox showcase or a PlayStation showcase or whatever has happened, a lot of times we'll have trailers of those included as well, in case you missed out on those things and just want kind of a condensed format to see these things. So, there's that. Of course, if you want to contact us, whether it's you have a question that you want to ask, or you just have comments, if you want to tell us that we're ugly or stupid, or that we should self-delete in Minecraft, or what have you, whatever it is you want to say to us, you can of course contact us. You can obviously comment on the video version of the podcast, which I forgot to mention on YouTube is at the Orangebox Podcast. And you can also contact us on Twitter or X, depending on what you prefer to call it, at the Orangebox Pod. We're also on Facebook, where you can just look up the Orangebox Podcast. And then you can email us, the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, I think that's everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I Am Zeracon. We are the Orangebox Podcast. And until next time, don't give up when you play Dark Souls. Try harder and keep at it until you get your victory, even if that means looking up a guide. Orangebox Podcast, out.